hoped this job wouldn't cause him to postpone his start date for the position he'd accepted with Owl Creek PD as lead detective. This case was getting a little personal for him. This was the second time the slasher had struck in Salt Lake City. Fletcher hadn't worked the first case. He'd already been working a homicide, which had taken priority over an assault. So far, the slasher hadn't killed anyone. But the wounds across the victim's face and chest were so deep that the man was going to have to spend some time in the hospital while they healed to make sure they didn't get infected. These wounds were even deeper than the ones the last victim had received. The violence seemed to be escalating. So it was just a matter of time before someone died, Fletcher thought. And even if they didn't, the slasher's victims were going to be scarred for life, physically and mentally as well. The slasher had to be stopped. These two cases in Salt Lake weren't the only assaults. Over the past few years, there had been random attacks outside nightclubs in LA and Vegas, and now, Salt Lake City. The randomness made it impossible to figure out where the slasher would strike next. Fletcher wanted to make sure that it was nowhere. He'd already interviewed the victim at the hospital. Now he was at the scene, watching as the techs collected evidence. Or at least he hoped they were collecting something that could be used as evidence. Lights had been set up in the alley so that nothing would be missed. The light illuminated the spatters and pools of blood from the attack that had been violent and vicious, and somehow personal. But the victim had no connection with the last one. At least none this victim, Eric Holt, was aware of. Fletcher couldn't find any association to the victims in the other states. What the hell was the motive? Maybe there wasn't one. Was this just some psycho who randomly picked victims to disfigure? "Not much here, Detective Colton," one of the techs said. "Not even footprints. And given the amount of blood, I would have expected to find something." Fletcher pushed a hand through his dark hair, which probably needed a cut, like usual, and sighed. "The victim wasn't able to give us any useful info either. Everything happened so fast, he couldn't even tell if it was a man or a woman who attacked him." The guy had been vague about all the details, but then he was pretty drunk, with a blood alcohol level that was twice the legal limit. That was the one thing all the victims had had in common. They'd been drinking, a lot. This guy had been at his bachelor party. So had one of the other victims. But the others had just been at the club as far as Fletcher knew. He had to find something else, another lead. "I'm going inside to do some interviews," he told the tech. "Let me know if you find any—" His cell rang, and he pulled it out of his jacket pocket. The contact information read Uncle Buck. In the middle of interviews, he would have ignored it, if not for what had happened recently with his sister Ruby, for how close they had come to losing her forever. But that case had been closed, and the deranged guy was locked up. She should be safe, especially with Sebastian Cross so determined to make sure she and their unborn child stayed out of harm's way. Still, Fletcher was concerned enough that he swiped to accept the call. "Uncle Buck, what is it? I'm at a crime. It's your dad, Fletcher. He's had another stroke. It doesn't look good. He's been life-flighted to Boise Medical. You need to get there as soon as you can." Fletcher cursed. His relationship with his dad was complicated, but Robert Colton was still his dad. Fletcher loved him, even though he got frustrated with him, like he was now. After the last stroke, he was supposed to quit the drinking and smoking. And whatever the hell else he'd been doing that he shouldn't have been doing, that he wouldn't have been doing, if he'd cared about anyone but himself. "Fletcher, it's too late for all of that now," Buck said, his voice gruff with emotion. A twinge of guilt struck Fletcher. He shouldn't have been thinking about that, let alone voicing his thoughts aloud. He shouldn't have been thinking about anything but his dad's health, and about his family. Buck's relationship with his brother hadn't always been the easiest either, but they were brothers. If his dad didn't recover from this stroke like his last one, it wasn't going to be easy for anyone to handle, especially not Fletcher's mother. "I'll be there as soon as I can," Fletcher assured his uncle. He had already turned in his resignation to